The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Edge Boost. Bank over better. Sign up today. Edge is the bet code SGPN. When you do sign up, you'll get a free Wrestler Terrorist t-shirt. Claim your shirt at sportsgambling.com/refs. We're also brought to you by NYRA Bets. Get your $25 free bet on the Belmont by going to nyrabets.com/SGPN25. Promo code SGPN25. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Friday evening, June 6th, around 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to break down the women's final taking place in the French Open, taking place on Saturday. So we're going to break down the match between Sabalenka and Gauff in a second. For that, though, I do want to remind everybody once again of the format for the show. We're going to recap the lock and dog picks of the last episode. We are not going to deep dive the men's semifinal matches. We'll save that for the final episode coming out on Saturday. Instead, we'll break down the picks, then segue into the women's semifinal matches to recap. Then we'll move on into the preview of the final between Gauff and Sabalenka. So starting off with the actual picks for the lock and dog, overall a weird recap for us because for the actual episode on the men's semis, we ended up having we had a win, kinda, for the dog, and we had a loss dash push, depending on what book you actually use. For the lock, we had the under half a breaker in the Alcaraz and Musetti match. So the second set went to a breaker. It was a heartbreaker. You had 4 separate breaks of serve. Alcaraz served out the second set, choked it, and then got broken, which forced the breaker. However, according to some books, you got voided because prop bets need the entire match to be completed for the actual bet to stand. So my book, for example, ended up pushing the wager, even though there was a breaker that already happened. I know some books graded the prop as a loser. Bet365 did, I believe. So once again, it was either a push or a loss, depending on what book you actually use. My book was a push. I'm assuming that a couple of people ended up suffering losses from that. So I don't know how to grade that, but point is you either lost or pushed, depending on what book you actually use. For the dog, though, had a reduced parlay win. We had Sinner and Alcaraz both minus 1.5 sets at about plus 107, and then Musetti dropped out in the fourth set. So Alcaraz ended up voiding, but Sinner did win in straight sets. That turned into a minus 190 cash. A very weird recap of the, once again, matches there for the lock and dog. But either way, point is you picked up either a win and a loss or a win and a push. So depending on what book you used, that might determine how well you did for the men's semis. Either way, time to move on into the recap of the semis for the women's side. Now, a reminder that we are going to have a pretty detailed discussion of the women's matches in this episode. Then we'll get into the men's matches for the next episode, so keep that in mind. But for the women's semifinals, pretty interesting collection of matches. You had one that was very competitive early on, then it died. And the other one was not even close. But either way, you had Sabalenka, who ended up beating Swiatek in 3 sets with a bagel in the final set. Really annoying for us because, a reminder, we did have the Swiatek team total over 12, which ended up pushing because she had 12 and needed 1 game in the entire third set. She didn't get it, ended up with 12, which was a really, really annoying push there. But either way, point is Sabalenka got the job done. Swiatek was able to be aggressive late in the second set. Third set came around, and she just completely was out of sorts. Felt like she was messing up her timing a lot. The serve was not very good. Sabalenka ended up breaking her 8 times. So kind of sums up how bad Swiatek was serving. But either way, point is Sabalenka got the job done there with a bagel in the third set. So kind of, I'd say, a dud for the ending of that match because it looked like it was going to be shaping up for an all-time classic. Then it wasn't. You had a breaker in the first set, a 4-6, then followed by absolutely nothing. And the match was over very quickly in that third set. But nice win for Sabalenka as she got the job done there in 3. As for the matchup, you ended up having Gauff against Boysen, who was the Cinderella story from France, home crowd behind her, and she got absolutely destroyed. Gauff beat her 6-1, 6-2. Match took 69 minutes. Not nice. It was over very quickly. In fact, you're looking at the actual holds that Boysen had in the match. I believe she only held 2 times in the entire match. It was ugly. She got destroyed. Gauff played well, don't get me wrong, but she was up 3-0 immediately with 15-40 to potentially, Boysen had 15-40 to get potentially back into the first set. didn't convert, fell behind 4-1, lost 6-1, and the avalanche was on from there. But Gauff looked very good, dominated. I thought the defense was solid for her. She forced Boysen to extra shots, and Boysen her unforced error issues played a factor in the match. It's kind of the issue you run into, though, when you get Cinderella runs. On one hand, it's very nice to see an unknown have a great run with a good story off the ACL injury, beating Pegula, beating Andreeva, and you think to yourself, maybe you'll get the very solid ending to the Cinderella run. Normally, it doesn't work out that way. Whether it involves the March Madness tournament in college basketball or if it involves, for example, tennis in Grand Slams. Usually when you get a Cinderella story, they eventually get destroyed by a top-tier player in one of the final couple rounds. That's what happened. I feel like even though Boysen made a great run, a lot of us thought to themselves midway through that first and second set, I kind of wish Andreeva was here. I'm sure that was the thought process for a lot of us, but either way, Boysen got destroyed. Gauff destroyed her, and you ended up seeing Gauff win, only dropping 3 games in the process. So once again, a pretty weird pair of semifinal matchups. You had one that was very close early on between 2 top 5 players, and then Swiatek unraveled, and then you had Gauff destroying pretty much a Cinderella run there as she won 6-1, 6-2. Now, as a reminder, for the actual outrights that we had for the event, we have Gauff actually to win the event at around plus 500. So we have her to win. We do not have Sabalenka. We did not take her with Zhang and with Swiatek in her either quarter or half. We thought that it wasn't worth the price, so hopefully Gauff wins for the 5-1. But of course, she's a dog in this matchup. We'll get into it in a second. Now, I see Gojo stopping by, saying that I'm going through WTA. What do you think it's safe to say whoever you have in? So, truth is, I haven't really done the full deep dive yet on the men's matchup. I have an idea of where I want to go, but a lot of it comes down to price. So to answer your question, Gojo, I'm not going to mention anything about the men's matchup because I have not fully, I'd say, broken down the matchup yet. So I'll get into that tomorrow. After this match concludes, I'll recap the lock and dog for the women's. Then I'll get into the preview for the men's final. But to answer your question, Gojo, not really decided yet. I'm still going to go through some of the stats. I'll go through some of the highlights. I'll look at some of the head-to-head stuff, basic stuff, but I'll do the research in a bit. But I've not done so yet, so I can't really answer your question. Waiting for more lines to open up to help shape my opinion on that matchup. I see Hydro mentioning that he does like the team total for Sabalenka, and I'll get into the team totals in a second. Point is, though, for the matchups themselves, you have a pretty fun final. We have Gauff at 5-1. We'll see if she closes it out, but if she doesn't, then Sabalenka is able to win another Grand Slam. Good for her. We'll see what happens. Anyway, though, before we get into the actual preview of the final for the women's match on Saturday, a reminder that you can also find all of our picks and podcasts for free on the SGPN app. Get all the free picks and podcasts for the Stanley Cup, College Baseball World Series, WNBA as well, NBA Finals on the SGPN app. Get it for free wherever you do get your apps. We're also brought to you by EdgeBoost, the first-ever bank out for bettors, ensuring that our gaming transactions are approved, and fees and no minimums. You can capture rewards as well. 100% approval. For having the deposit sign up today, EdgeBoost.pepper code SGPN. And when you sign up for your new account this week, you'll get a free Refs for Terrorists t-shirt. Go to sportscampbox.com/refs to claim your free shirt. We're also brought to you by Fantasy because they're going along for the NBA Finals with their extender bonus. Hop in game 1, and the longer the series goes, the bigger the bonus gets. When you sign up, though, for your new account, use promo code SGPN. You get a special pick and a first-time visit offer up to $1K in bonus cash on Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by NYRA Bets because you can bet them on stakes at Saratoga. Then NYRA Bets. Sign up today with the promo code SGPN25 to get a $25 free bet plus a $200 deposit match bonus. Whether you're a season bettor or just getting started, NYRA Bets does make it easier to jump in on the action. Exclusive offer is just for the Belmont, though, so don't wait. Join now. Claim your free $25 Belmont bet today at NYRABets.com/SGPN25. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened in the women's semifinal matches. Not too much to talk about, honestly, because one match was basically a bye for Gauff. But either way, point is we now have the final matchup between Gauff and Sabalenka. Now, for that history, it's been very close, actually. It's currently tied 5-5, so it has been close. Sabalenka did beat her on clay about a month ago in Madrid as she won 6-3, 7-6. Gauff, though, beat her in the WTA finals last year in straight sets, 7-6, 6-3. Faced off in Wuhan, and you saw Sabalenka beat Gauff in 3 there, and you saw her win the Australian Open in straight sets, 7-6, 6-4 last year. So the point is, we have seen Sabalenka look good lately, as she has won 3 of the last 4, but Gauff did beat her in the U.S. Open 2023. We saw a couple of matchups come down to the wire in 3 sets. You also ended up seeing the face-off on clay in Rome 2021, and Gauff did win in straight sets. Point is, though, we've seen a pretty competitive history, and we'll see how it shapes up on Saturday. Now, for the actual pricing, Sabalenka is obviously favored. She's minus 220. For Gauff, she's plus 186. For the spread, I see minus 3.5 for Sabalenka, plus 3.5 for Gauff, and the over-unders at 21.5 games, minus 125 on the over, plus 105 on the under. Now, for the matchup itself, I have to mention the actual path of both players, because Sabalenka's been great, Gauff's been coasting, but there has been a pretty, I'd say, strong differential in terms of, I'd say, difficulty of path. Sabalenka did not drop a set until the matchup against Swiatek, but she beat the defending 3-time champion on clay, 4-time champion in the French Open, in 3 with a bagel in the final set. Also beat Zhang, who is a top 10 player in straight sets. As for Gauff, she's beaten basically nobody. Beat Gadecki, beat Valentova, beat Buskova, beat Alexandrova, who is top 20, and beat Keys, who's top 10 in 3 sets, then beat Boyson as a wild card in the semis. So Gauff has had a much easier go of it so far. Yes, Alexandrova is top 20. Point is, though, Keys is the only top 10 player that she's beaten, and Sabalenka ended up beating 2 solid clay players back-to-back, and was pretty convincing in both matches. So, based on the form, I understand why Sabalenka is a pretty big favorite here for this matchup. Now, do I think it's going to be an easy matchup either way? No. I think it will be somewhat close. I think it will be a matchup that might feature a breaker in there. It wouldn't shock me if you end up getting at least one competitive set that goes distance, then maybe Sabalenka opens it up. Maybe it goes 3. I do think Sabalenka's firepower is going to win her the match, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Sabalenka. I think she is the better player, in my opinion. Yes, Gauff has been looking sharp. I think weak competition plays a factor. Did lose the breaker to Keys, that ended up dominating the last 2 sets. Point is, though, Keys was able to use the firepower to keep Keys off balanced in that first set. I think Sabalenka can do the same in this one. However, we know with Sabalenka, the issue will be unforced errors. If she can keep the aggression under control while hitting her spots, she should win. But I do expect some unforced errors to be present for Sabalenka, because they always are against Gauff. For this one, though, I see a close matchup. I think it might end up going potentially 3 sets. I like the over in this one at 21.5. I think you can end up seeing a 3-setter or maybe even a 7-5 or 7-6 and end up getting a pretty competitive matchup that ends in straight sets. I can see that happening too. For the matchup itself, though, I want to mention the actual props here. You have Gauff and Sabalenka combined breaks of serve at over under 8.5. You have the combined double faults at 10.5. The tiebreak over half a tiebreaks plus 233. Total time on court, by the way, is 108.5 minutes. So if you want to go for the over there, it's an hour and 48 plus minutes. So we'll see what happens there. For the matchup itself, I don't mind the over maybe on the time if you want to go for that very niche prop. Double faults can be tricky. Gauff's individual double fault line is at 8.5, which I understand why it's so high. It's a little bit too high for me. Like, I can't bet that. I feel like you can make an argument that it's definitely possible to get there. I wouldn't argue with you. But 8.5 double faults from one player, I just can't bet that. I don't see much value for the actual prop there. Just hoping Gauff double faults like every single serve, basically. I can't do it. You can argue maybe there's some value there. Maybe there is. I'm not going to take it. But that is definitely a unique prop for this one. The question is for the potential aces, by the way, the over-under combined is at 4.5. Gauff, we know with her length, can be very good at preventing aces. The serve, though, for her size is really not that great. Gauff, we know, has a very shaky first serve, and you're looking at Sabalenka, who can use deep return position to potentially limit the aces for Gauff. I do think you're looking at a spot where you might end up seeing some aces here, but I can also see a world where both players might struggle with nerves. They'll miss some first serves, and you end up getting a pretty minimal number of aces for this matchup. For the matchup in Madrid, we did play pretty fast on clay, though. They combined for 4 in straight sets. I think I would consider the under aces, but only because it's plus money. I don't see, once again, much value in the niche player prop markets there for the actual aces, double faults, etc. Yes, to answer your question, Cayetano, her serve can be quite bad for Gauff. I looked it up actually earlier today. I want to see if I can pull it up quickly again, because Gauff's numbers double fault-wise against Sabalenka have been really bad historically, and I want to pull that up. So in the matchup this year on clay, Gauff had 8 in the straight set loss in Madrid a month ago. In the WTA finals, Gauff won the match. She only had 2 in that one. In Wuhan, Sabalenka won in 3. Gauff had 21 double faults. 21 in that matchup. Australian Open, Gauff ended up having 8 in that one. US Open, Gauff had 5. So once again, you're looking at the matchups, 3 of the last 4 head-to-head. She has gone over 7.5 double faults. Problem is her line is at 8.5, which is why it's kind of tricky. 9 might be a lot, but I do want to point out Gauff's double faulting in this event as well. I know Joe mentioned it a second ago in the comment section. To go into some detail, though, for Gauff's double faulting against Boysen, she basically had none because Boysen got killed. Keys, she had 10 in that 3-setter. Alexandrova, she had 4. Buskova, she had 4. Valentova, she had 6. And Gadecki, she had 7. So she's only gone over 1 time in this event, but it was the 3-setter against a top 10 opponent, the only top 10 opponent that she's faced in the event. So you could argue that if it goes distance, maybe you need 3 sets to cash that Gauff double fault prop. And at that point, you'd rather take the over 2.5 sets. But yes, Cayetano, she did have 21 in Wuhan against Sabalenka about a year ago. That is definitely a true story. That is not a fake stat. That's definitely true. Now, I do think for the matchup itself, I do think Sabalenka wins. I don't see it being very straightforward, though. I think Gauff's defense will force a difficult set. I think Sabalenka's firepower will find her the edge in a potential breaker. But Gauff's serving, I think, will be the reason why she loses. I know that Swiatek was able to break serve a lot, which is why she was able to win the second set, and why she was able to force a breaker just by getting broken all the time in the first set. However, Gauff's serve, I think, can be pretty weak. I think Sabalenka can be aggressive here. And if Sabalenka is going to be able to hit first serves and win some free points, that might be all she needs to differentiate herself from her opponent. Give me Sabalenka in this one. For the spread, I think I'll go with the spread here. I think she'll win 1 set by a big enough margin to cover this. Gauff has been good. I'm not going to roast her for it, but I do think the competition's been weak. Not her fault. It's why we picked her to win the event. We acknowledged how weak her half of the draw was, and we were not sold on Andreeva to make it into the semis, and she didn't. But Sabalenka's been great. Beat Zhang, beat Swiatek. She only dropped 1 set in the entire event. I got to go with Sabalenka here. I think even though Gauff has had her number on a couple of occasions, I think right now Sabalenka is a tier above Gauff. It's close, but I'd put her in the 1A, 1B tier, probably just by herself right now, because Swiatek's falling apart. Sabalenka is number 1 in the world for a good reason. Gauff's probably around 3. You could argue 2 if you want to roast Swiatek for the last year. Not going to argue there, but Gauff, the point is, I think, is a step below Sabalenka. I think Sabalenka wins this matchup because of it. We'll go 3 sets or 3. I like the over in games instead. Kind of covers both worlds there. But I see a competitive set, and then we'll go from there. But I see a close matchup, and I think it'll be fun. But give me Sabalenka to lift the trophy by the end of it. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the breakdown of the women's final in the French Open. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into that, though, a reminder they're brought to you by Circa, because they still have the Ultimate Festival giveaway, because they're giving away a 12-person, once again, giveaway for their draft in Vegas, and they can be treated like VIPs at their stay. You get a limo ride from the airport, a 5K tab from Stadium Swim, for Stadium Swim, and also, you'll also get a hotel stay for you and your 11 league mates. So once again, a free trip. Keep that in mind if you do win the giveaway. You can also capitalize on the SGPN discount for Circa. Get 15% off everything for Circa with promo code SGP15, and enter the contest for free at sportsgamble.com to Circa, sportsgamble.com to CIRCA. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because they are, of course, a proud sponsor that we've had for a long time, and they have a brand new game-changing feature called Power Trends. They are AI-detected patterns. Rhythm does have a model that consistently wins and has a high ROI. And if you want to try it out, it's uploaded every day, updated every day, and it's exclusive to Rhythm. No touts, no noise, just clean data-backed picks. Download the app, check out the Power Trends, and start betting smarter. And a reminder, try to free for a week, within 7-day free trial. Go to sportsgamble.com/RETHMM. We're also brought to you by MyBookie, because MyBookie, they plays every sport. They have the playoffs, they have the NHL playoffs, they have tennis, they have UFC, they have golf, you name it. They're also available to home locations. Use crypto for this payouts. Either deposit yourself for your new account, use the promo code SGPN. They get a $1 match up to 1K. Terms and conditions, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the women's final taking place in the French Open on Saturday. Time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I did find a pretty cheap number on the spread here for Sabalenka. I'm going to go with Sabalenka minus 2.5 games at minus 139. It was minus 129 this morning. It moved. Most books have around minus 150 or minus 160, but I did find a minus 139, which I do like quite a bit. I think it's a good spot for Sabalenka to showcase her overall skill and to showcase the fact that she's the best player in the world. You're looking at the same bet being available at minus 160 on FanDuel. Sabalenka, though, has already beaten two top 7 players in the world in the last 2 rounds in Zhang and Swiatek, only dropping 1 set in the entire process. For Gauff, though, very weak competition. She's only faced off against 1 player in the top 19, 2 players in the top 20. So not exactly tough competition. Got basically a bye in the semis against Boyson. So I'm not going to overreact to how great the performance was. Yes, she looked very good, but she was against a player who I think none of us expected to be there. I do think that Sabalenka is a massive step up in competition. I think Keys showcased a potential pathway for Sabalenka. We saw Keys win the first set against Gauff with the firepower. We know Sabalenka has a similar play style, but she's better at it. Give me Sabalenka to once again cover the spread. She did end up covering the spread in the meeting in Madrid about a month ago as she won in straight sets. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Sabalenka, I think, is in a good spot to win a French Open title, and the price is pretty good here compared to the rest of the market. Give me Sabalenka minus 2.5 and minus 139 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go with the Sabalenka team total over 12.5 at plus 102. Was mentioned earlier on the show. It was mentioned by Hydro, who said that he liked the play as well. I do too. It's going to be my dog for the show. Found plus money on FanDuel, so I'll grab it. Sabalenka, despite winning and only dropping 1 set in the entire tournament, has gone over this team total in 3 straight. She's had a couple of 7-5 and 7-6s. Can't see a good path for her to win this while also going over the team total. There's been a 7-5 or 7-6, though, in 3 of Gauff's last 4 matches, too. So expect some length in sets here for once again this matchup, and I think that should bode well for the Sabalenka team total, whether she wins or loses this match. Plus, Sabalenka has gone over this team total in 3 of the last 4 head-to-head meetings. So even when Sabalenka wins, she tends to go over this number. 12.5 at plus money, I think is a great price. Most books have around minus 105, minus 110, but I found plus 102 on FanDuel. I'll take that as my dog for the show. So once again, the plays for the lock and dog, going to go with the Sabalenka spread minus 2.5 at minus 139 on that was on Bet Rivers as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go with Sabalenka team total over 12.5 games at plus 102. To wrap it up for the show, back once again for the men's final taking place on Sunday. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.